Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Ivan. When my wife joked that I was her second choice, I did something she never thought I'd have the courage to do. I met Claire at a point in my life that, in hindsight, couldn't have been worse timing. I was 28, working as an accountant at a medium-sized firm in the city. Claire was 26 and employed at a marketing agency. We were introduced through a mutual friend who happened to work with her. I was the one who made the first move. I tried to strike up a conversation, asking the usual small-talk questions you ask when meeting someone new. She responded politely, but her answers were short, almost attached. Her eyes kept drifting away mid-conversation, as if searching for a way out. After about 10 minutes of me carrying the dialogue alone, she politely excused herself to chat with someone else. It wasn't the most encouraging first impression, but I didn't hold it against her. I figured she just wasn't interested, and that was fair. But over the next few months, we kept bumping into each other at social gatherings through mutual friends. Every time I tried to talk to her, she'd still seem distant. Not cold. Exactly. More like someone trying to keep herself protected. I asked her to grab a coffee once. She said yes, then canceled the same morning with a vague excuse about feeling unwell. A couple weeks later, I asked again. She said she'd let me know and never did. My friends told me to stop trying. Said she clearly wasn't into me and I was just wasting my time. But there was something about her that drew me in. Something fragile beneath the distance. It felt like she was carrying pain she didn't want anyone to see, and part of me believed that if someone just reached her, she'd let those walls down. About 2 months after our first meeting, the mutual friend who introduced us told me the truth. Claire had just gotten out of a 6-year relationship. Her ex had been with her since college, and they practically built a future together. They lived together, talked about marriage, and shared every plan. Then, 8 months before I met her, he left her for her best friend. The two people she trusted most in the world betrayed her in the most brutal way. Her ex and best friend got married just 2 months earlier. The wound was still fresh. It explained everything. Her guarded nature, her flakiness, her distance. My friend shared this as a warning, that she wasn't emotionally available and I should move on. But instead of pushing me away, it made me understand her. She'd been crushed by betrayal, so of course she had walls. Of course she didn't trust easily. But I wasn't him. I wasn't the kind of man who would break someone like that. I convinced myself that if she just gave me a chance, I could prove that not all men were like her ex. I could love her in a way that helped her heal, show her what real trust felt like. So I didn't walk away. I changed my approach. I became more patient, less demanding. I'd send her light, funny texts, or share interesting things without expecting replies. I remembered little details she let slip in conversation and followed up on them later. Slowly, over several months, she began to open up. Her replies became warmer. She started saying yes to invitations more often, and eventually, she began letting me into her world, though she rarely mentioned her ex or her old best friend. After about 5 months of steady, quiet persistence, we officially became a couple. But even then, I could feel she was entirely with me. She was physically present, but emotionally, part of her was still trapped in her past. She mentioned her ex's name often. Despite claiming she wanted to forget him, she compared my gestures to his. Sometimes she cried without warning, blaming it on stress or tiredness, but I knew what it really was. My friends warned me again, said I was just a rebound, someone she chose because she couldn't have who she really wanted. But I ignored them. I told myself they didn't understand. All she needed was time, love, and consistency. I believed my patience would help her heal, and eventually, she'd choose me wholeheartedly. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Those years were a mix of highs and lows. When she was happy, she was affectionate, and I felt like I mattered. But there were also stretches where she'd shut down emotionally, pick fights over nothing, or compare me unfavorably to her ex. I excused it as part of the healing process, convincing myself that with enough time, she'd finally move on. By our 2nd year, the good seemed to outweigh the bad, Or maybe I'd just gotten used to explaining away the bad. I proposed during a quiet weekend getaway at the coast. She said yes immediately, beaming, excited to plan our future. We got married a year later. Our vows felt like a new beginning. I genuinely believed marriage would be the anchor that held us together. The first months were good, a honeymoon phase, filled with affection, hope, and laughter. But by the second year, the cracks started to show. Fights became frequent. We argued about communication, intimacy, chores, things that shouldn't have been that big, but somehow always escalated. We sat together in the same room at night, but lived like strangers, wrapped in silence. Conversations became shallow. She pulled away physically, emotionally. Affection faded. She often accused me of not understanding her anymore, of changing since marriage, of failing to see her. Meanwhile, I felt unseen and unappreciated. I worked hard to give us stability, turned down a better job in another city because she didn't want to move. I tried to be patient, even when she wasn't easy to love. But nothing seemed to be enough. Then came her birthday. I was exhausted from the constant tension, but I wanted to do something special for her anyway. I planned a surprise party at home, elegant but intimate. I hired an event planner, arranged her favorite foods, decorated with string lights and flowers, and invited about 25 people close to us. When she walked to the door that night, everyone yelled surprise. Her eyes widened, hands covering her mouth, tears welling up. She hugged me tightly, thanked me again and again. It was the happiest I'd seen her in months. The night went beautifully. Laughter, good food, warmth. Then, as we sat at the dinner table, one of her friends smiled at her and said, "You really got a good one," referring to me. Claire laughed lightly and said, "Yeah, I guess my second choice wasn't so bad after all." The table laughed. Some found it funny, others awkward. But I didn't laugh. Everything around me blurred into background noise. Second choice. 3 years of loving her through her pain. 2 years of marriage where I kept trying to make her feel safe. A carefully planned surprise party. And I was her second choice. It all clicked in that moment. The constant comparisons to her ex, the distance, the way I always felt like I was competing with a ghost. She hadn't chosen me because she wanted me. She chose me because he wasn't an option anymore. I was the safe pick. For the rest of the evening, I moved on autopilot, smiled, thanked guests, cleaned up, but inside I was numb. When everyone left, she kept talking excitedly about the night, unaware of the storm she'd just unleashed. When she finally noticed my silence, she asked what was wrong. I asked why she said that. She rolled her eyes and told me it was just a joke, that I couldn't take a little humor. I walked away without arguing, went to the guest room, and stared at the ceiling all night, replaying every moment of our relationship in my mind. In the days that followed, I withdrew emotionally. I still lived in the house, still handled chores and daily routines, but I was detached, cold, minimal conversation, no affection. She sensed it was different this time. She apologized, something she rarely ever did. I barely responded. She suggested therapy. I agreed, but my heart wasn't in it. After 2 sessions, I knew I was done. My trust had shattered, and no amount of counseling could rebuild it. Weeks later, during a minor argument, she exploded, accusing me of punishing her for one little joke. I looked at her and said quietly, it wasn't a joke. It was the truth slipping out. I told her I couldn't spend the rest of my life knowing I'd always be second best. She cried and insisted she chose to marry me. But I told her choosing someone out of comfort isn't the same as wanting them. Her silence said everything. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. She was devastated but not shocked. During the process, I discovered she'd been in contact with her ex throughout our marriage. He'd moved to a nearby city. She never told me. They texted, occasionally met up. She claimed it was just friendship. But for me, it confirmed everything I already knew. We divorced quietly. No children. Fair division of assets. 8 months later, it was over. I moved to a smaller apartment. Started therapy. Rebuilt my life piece by piece. My therapist helped me understand that none of this was my fault. Claire came into our relationship broken, and I tried to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I'd spent years trying to earn space in a heart that never truly had room for me. Her ex would always be frozen in her memory as perfect, untouched by reality. I, on the other hand, was real, present, flawed, safe, second best. That birthday party was my last grand gesture. But no amount of lights, flowers, or devotion can make someone truly choose you if they never did in the first place. Looking back now, from the distance of years and from a much healthier relationship, I can finally see it clearly. Claire wasn't cruel. She was just broken. But some wounds are too deep for love to fix.